All right, so we know that the police minister and the commissioner in Mthatha today, following up on that investigation into the murder of Namhla Mtwa, that protest has raised the case. Everyone's talking about it, but it seems that even with high-profile cases, it's very difficult to see arrests, to see people brought to justice. We know that Mtwa's sister put on social media that she believes her sister was killed by her boyfriend, and she says she has proof that her sister was involved in a very abusive relationship for many years. But it's a tragically common story, isn't it, in South Africa? So I'm joined now by criminologist and lecturer at Stellenbosch University, Dr. Guy Lamb. Dr. Lamb, thank you for your time. Let's just first start by this case from Mthatha. You know, the sister said, "Why didn't you speak to my dead sister's boyfriend? I have proof that he abused her." And when we hear from the police minister today, instead of giving us details on everything they know and everything they've done, he just says, "We're on solid ground." And it strikes me that there's not enough communication. And that is adding to this problem of trust, surely.
I mean, communication is quite key in building relationships between the police and community. Of course, the minister's coming in from from Pretoria's coming in from, very much the top down. And so there's not much that he can say about specific contexts. And, he's there trying to spin something positive out of this, but obviously take some responsibility on the part of the police as well. The challenge here is often that it's the relationship that happens at the station level. And in many circumstances, you get sort of police who are demoralized, who are almost traumatized in high crime areas, or who lose interest, or, just aren't very professional. And in some areas we do. But unfortunately, what we've seen in Mthatha recently is one of these examples where, the level of police professionalism is just not good enough. But of course, from the policing point of view, I think there's also the sense of, you kind of deal with gender-based violence all the time and they become quite desensitized to it. So it's not an excuse for that kind of behavior, but certainly from police management point of view, you need to find ways to try and ensure that members treat those who come to the stations who are victims of violence with respect and professionalism.
And there's this narrative. The police say the community doesn't report crimes when they know who's responsible. The community says, well, actually, when we do report things to you, you do nothing about it. And you mentioned gender-based violence. There's a video which we're about to play. What it shows essentially, Guy, is a woman walking into a police station, which I understand is in Mthatha. And as she's trying to report a crime, she's being hit by a man. And it seems it's possibly that she's trying to report a case of assault, and the man follows her in and assaults her again. There's an attempt to try and sort it out, but there doesn't seem to be any action, and I think that's what's so shocking about this video. Let's take a quick look and then we'll chat again.
I am going to tell you that I am going to take a video.
Yeah, I guess it's...
I am going to take a video. I am going to take a video.
Now, Guy, I'm not sure if you're able to see all that, but just a bit of context. Musi Maimane actually tweeted this a day ago. He says, how can a victim trying to report GBV be assaulted in the police station? This appalling incident happened at Madeira police station in Stutterheim. Is your administration serious about GBV? And it seems that what happened is the woman who was trying to film the assault was then attacked by the same man. You'd think that in a police station, no one would dare come up and punch someone trying to report a crime. When you see something like that, one has to ask, how serious are our police about dealing with gender-based violence?
Well, I mean, let's start from certainly from a policy point of view, certainly from, if you look at the strategic plans of the police, they've prioritized it. It's down as one of the high priority areas. I think the issue is around, is that kind of messaging filtering down to the station level? And I think in the case of, sort of police and in their kind of defense, dealing with the kind of cases which unfold in sort of the blink of an eye in sort of the charge office where police are not expecting this. Someone comes in to lay a charge and then that's sort of an administrative process. And if the person has been a victim of crime, then depends on the police station, there would be some sort of support services for them. There's a specialized unit and specialized police that deal with that. But when, suddenly a crime and violence unfolds before the police, it's not something they might necessarily be expecting. But of course, you would like to see quite a robust response from the police to see the perpetrator being restrained and ensuring that there's no further victimization, no other people are hurt. But of course, when something like this happens, then it goes onto social media, then it just reinforces quite negative notions about the police. But of course, the video is, it's difficult to kind of comprehend what's going on. In it, clearly there has been, abuse happening within that video, and you can't really see where the police are and what they're supposed to be doing in this. In those kind of situations, you would expect a much more rapid response from uniformed police in such a scenario.
Yeah, certainly we blurred quite a lot of the images. We just were careful about revealing people's identity, and from what I can remember of watching the video before it was blurred, it was actually civilians who were trying to stop the fighting, by and large. But as you say, there are always things that happen out of the frame as well. I want to talk to you about what happened in the USA. It's a way to lead in what is happening here in South Africa. We know about that horrific mass shooting at a primary school in Texas. 19 children under the age of 11 shot and killed 2 teachers. Utterly horrific. We don't have exactly that sort of thing here. But we have, and I want to just put up some images that we found on social media yesterday. We were discussing in our team, and it actually shows Cape Flats kids in their classroom, and we're just going to drop this step. It's going to spring to life now. We'll actually see what it actually shows, Guy, is these kids are cowering under their desks, and it says, fighting between a local gang in Hanover. Kids hiding under their desks. And this is the problem, is that we have a different kind of gun problem. And I just wonder if you've got a handle on what exactly it is that's going on in terms of these areas where it just seems so difficult to control rampant gangsterism, where they will shoot over schools. Sometimes the gang fights spill over onto schools. What do you see when you see images like that?
I mean, of course, these are particularly frightening and concerning images, but of course, this is not the first time it's happened. I mean, if you're looking at this Hanover Park has seen, unfortunately, so much of this violence. You've seen children, school learners, being admitted to Red Cross Children's Hospital with gunshot wounds from that specific area. It's been ongoing for a while. I mean, the sort of violence the point you make, the violence we experience here in schools is different to the US. I mean, the US, if we look specifically at the mass shootings that have been happening, where you sort of see these marginalized young men who have access to high-powered firearms and see schools as specific targets, and fortunately we're not exposed to something like that. But what we are exposed to here is certainly gang fights over territories, or gangsters coming onto schools who are looking to target a specific individual, either for reprisal, or they're part of a gang, or a family member's part of a gang. And it's a constant problem for many schools in high crime areas in Cape Town, but not only in Cape Town, we sort of see it in Gqeberha as well. And I suppose you also see this in many, violent cities in the US, kind of gangs coming onto school grounds as well, schools having to take measures to deal with this. So certainly this is very traumatizing for children. It certainly affects their learning outcomes as well. It's very traumatizing for teachers, and it makes, the kind of whole education process much more challenging.
What's going to work to fix this? I mean, there's some interesting things. First of all, we know that our police commissioner has said we actually need double the boots on the ground. Cops on the beat, monitoring dangerous areas. That's really tricky. That's not going to happen. We have 150,000, we need 300,000. But also, it's interesting what's been happening in Younger recently, in the Western Cape. This LEAP project, which is a law enforcement project, bringing more police visibility into specific crime-ridden areas. And it does seem, early days though, that they're making an impact on the murder rate. It seems to be coming down. Is that the way to go? Is that the sort of glimmer of hope in all this horrible gloom?
I mean, the way in which we look at these particular issues is obviously the short to medium term interventions and then the longer term stuff. And I mean, a lot of this violence comes from, centuries of inequality, centuries of marginalization, unemployment, especially amongst young men, kind of pro-violence masculine norms that exist there, and a whole range of kind of community challenges that are related to socioeconomic conditions. I mean, that's the kind of long-term issue. But in terms of the short to medium term, we know from some very good studies, most have been in North America, but they've been undertaken in violent cities, that if you have very targeted, evidence-driven policing interventions, it's called hotspots policing or evidence-led policing, the data is very good then. It shows that that kind of intervention can work. So that's what's certainly starting to happen within SAPS. There's a lot of investment within the Western Cape government because they're trying to demonstrate that, they can do better when it comes to combating crime. But of course, their resources are more limited. So they've gone into this partnership through their safety plan with the City of Cape Town and have these law enforcement officers. So it's an experiment, but, these are fairly green individuals. They don't have a huge amount of policing experience, and they're thrown into quite complex, violent environments, having to deal with these complex situations. But hence, it's increased police visibility. And if you have this targeted approach with increased visibility, and if you can combine that with, seizing illegal firearms, and you can combine that with effective arrests of wanted people, you can see crime rates come down. And certainly we saw that between 2000 and 2008. The police actually did that. And we saw the murder rate almost half as a result of that. So I think those are sort of important things, that we're on the right path here. It requires resources, but I think the important thing is the better cooperation between SAPS and the provincial government and the City of Cape Town Safety and Security.
Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. Criminologist and lecturer at Stellenbosch University, Dr. Guy Lamb.